fuck ahead.
Bad driving, something that we sadly see more and more often. Like the amount of people that can drive is increasing, right? From not signaling your moves, whatever this maneuver is, and road rage. All these things seem to be getting more and more common. And you can't just make an excuse for everyone, because I don't believe that all these people are going through the worst day of their lives. And even that wouldn't excuse texting while driving 150 in a school zone. And yeah, we all seen these car crash videos before. But why do these things happen? Why are so many people bad at driving? And why the hell is someone screaming outside? So, bad driving is very much not a new thing. It exists since driving became a thing. However, there is an interesting trend of people not knowing how to drive. And it is linked to a lot of things, but the first one that I want to touch on is distracted driving. So, here is the thing. In modern day, distracted driving is the main reason why car crashes happen. We all know that these things are distracting and take up a lot of attention, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people realize that using them while driving is kinda bad. Like, okay, using your phone to have a map or something is okay. This is how I use it because the car I drive doesn't even have a radio. But there is having your phone like this, and then there is using it as if you weren't driving a fast and heavy piece of machinery. Texting while driving, for example. Why do people do that? Like, they know that they can pull over if it's something important, right? Don't endanger others to write what you want for dinner tonight. Trust me, whatever you need to write can probably wait a couple of minutes. There is also trying to do everything while waiting in a red light. While this is safer compared to doing it while driving, it's still probably not something that you should do. Lights can change any moment and you will be distracted when it happens. Like, you don't need to pay the same level of attention while waiting, but you should still pay some. And it also sets up a precedent of using your phone while behind the wheel. So just don't do that unless it's literally a life or death situation. Also, crazy stuff can happen while waiting, I'll tell you that.
Oh my god.
Recording videos and TikToks in cars has also become normalized. Sometimes it's okay-ish to do this, as long as you don't focus on it too much and you do it on a fairly deserted road. But making TikToks when you just straight up dance is very much not okay. And don't get me started on live streaming. It's probably one of the worst things you can do while driving. And again, there are some exceptions, but if you are straight up reading chat while doing it, you should probably reconsider your life choices.
What's this?
Alright, before I go to the obvious, I want to mention about the demographic that uses the phones the most while driving. Because, in my experience, the people that use it usually aren't new drivers, but drivers after 2, 3, or even 4 years? Yeah, why not? At this point, people get comfortable while driving and start to get way too overconfident in their skills. Obviously, all ages are doing that, but at this point, people are starting to do it seriously. And they will, until they get into trouble of some sorts. So yeah, distracted driving is a big problem. I mean, this is a real tweet by a police department. Like, what? Do you know how bad this looks? They are literally telling people to only walk facing the traffic, because otherwise a distracted driver will run them over. If this is not a sign of, let's be honest here, an epidemic, I don't know what is. Alright then, but what are the causes? Well, obviously it's smartphone addiction, but also trying to maximize the amount of free time that we have. It's the part of the whole grind set mindset or whatever. But the addiction part is the most common one. We are so used to using these things that we can't imagine not doing it even while driving. It's an addiction, plain and simple. And fixing it would require my favorite thing, systematic change. And actually approaching these addictions instead of just putting up a poster in school and doing nothing else otherwise. However, this is just the beginning. On top of distracted drivers, we have a lot more bad things to consider, and that includes the second main reason why car crashes happen. Speed. So speeding is the second, sometime ago first, reason for car crashes. And this one is pretty simple. People take speed limits as speed suggestions or even worse, speed minimums. Like seriously, where I live, a guy was caught doing 110 kilometers in a 50 zone, while it was snowing and there was a lot of ice on the road. Do these people want others dead or what? But the problem is deeper than that, because unlike using a phone while driving, a lot of people think it's fine to speed, and they often defend theirs and others' actions. Why? Because, as they say, they know what they are doing. Spoiler, they don't. And you don't even need bad road conditions for speeding to be dangerous. Tunnel vision, anybody? Like, here's the thing. I know that street signs sometimes feel as if they are placed at random, but trust me, they are not. There is a reason why speed limits are what they are. Safety of the driver and others, for example. The fact that they have a margin of error built in shouldn't mean anything. It's for extreme situations, not for everyday driving. Also, fun fact, speed is the main reason why cars crash into buildings. Let me repeat that. Crash into buildings. There is also going too slow, but I rarely see it. And most people talking about it get weirdly defensive when talking about speeding. So there's that. And speeding is a very weird behavior to me. Because why? Adrenaline. People going fast just want adrenaline. They also overestimate their abilities while not trained for others. So they are just assholes basically. And they aren't even saving that much time either. Congratulations! By endangering the life of others, you save 2 minutes and burn 50% more gas. And while the feats here may be obvious, you know, speed cameras, I know there are better ways to deal with speed, but bear with me, they, and I mean speed cameras, are not liked very much. Like, how many stories are there of speed cameras being vandalized or straight up destroyed? For what? So you can go a little bit faster? People are stupid, aren't they? But I also can't mention going too fast without mentioning this shit. This weaving between traffic and almost hitting others. Like, where are you driving that you need to do that? This is bad, not good. These people are treating the road like it's some kind of video game. Because, you know, this is fine in GTA or Cyberpunk, for example, but this is not GTA or Cyberpunk. This is real life, and there are actual consequences if you fuck up. I actually met a guy like that while driving recently, going like 160 in a 120 and weaving between traffic. And to add insult to injury, it wasn't a sports car, BMW or anything. It was a goddamn Fiat Panda. But the reason for that is the same as speeding. So adrenaline chasing, lack of empathy, and overestimating your skill. But on topic of changing lanes and turns in general, signaling. Why, oh do why, people not use their turn signal? It literally takes a fraction of a second, and you don't really have to go out of your way to do it. These things are very useful, because as the name suggests, they signal your turn. And they are very much not optional, and the excuses to not use them just straight up suck. Saying that you forgot to use them is not only a bad look, but also only acceptable if you literally just started your driving lessons. Because you know, if there is this L sign on the roof, I do give some kind of leeway with that stuff. They are still learning after all. But if you are not a learner driver, use them properly. And don't give me the excuse of there was no one around and they are going to cut me off. It's still bad. For starters, you never know if someone is there. And when it comes to cutting people off, I believe that it happens. Trust me, I do. Happened to me a couple of times. But not using your turn signal only contributes to the problem and doesn't fix anything long term. And here I believe the reason is pretty obvious. People are just lazy. There is genuinely no good reason to not use your turn signals. However, there is one thing that encapsulates all of these issues perfectly, and it's road rage. It's dangerous, stupid, and very petty, but it's also sometimes kind of tempting. Like, you want to teach a lesson to someone that cut you off. You want to teach a lesson to someone that uses their phone while driving, and you want to enact some weird vigilante justice. One problem with it though, this pettiness only makes the situation worse. Like, you tell me, does this look safe? If the answer is yes, you should probably have your license revoked if you have one. The worst thing about road rage is that while it's not the most common thing out there, it's definitely the most problematic. And why is that, you might ask? Well, you see, road rage is most personal. Using your phone, speeding, and not using your turn signal is dangerous. But most of the time, people don't do it to cause harm. They do it because they are inconsiderate. But road rage? Nah. It's specifically either to piss someone off or to enact some selfish justice. You have to go out of your way to do it. And that's why I think it's so problematic. A person speeding or not paying attention is dangerous. That's pretty obvious, but they won't get out of their car to threaten you. And the worst thing about it, sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. You can drive perfectly fine and safe, and still piss off some weirdo who thinks that overtaking them is a personal attack. And as with distracted driving, road rage would require more societal and systemic change. Because road rage comes from stress. Stress of daily life, stress of driving, and the stress of being in traffic for 2 hours. So combine that with a bad driver or someone doing something that you don't want, and it all just comes crashing down in a form of a dick measuring contest. Or they are just narcissists that think everyone should do what they want or else. It can be both, honestly. Alright, you mentioned a couple of symptoms and even some reasons. But what are the other reasons for bad driving? Because the things that I mentioned aren't the only ones responsible for this problem of people not knowing how to drive. So the first thing here that I want to touch on is connected to the distracted driving. And I am talking about all this technology that the newer cars have. And there are some obvious things, the giant touchscreens for example, because having basically everything on a giant screen is definitely not helping with distraction. Though when it comes to that, I have some mixed feelings. On one hand, they are distracting, sure, but on the other hand, they are useful and have some nice options. Preferably there would be a touchscreen for more complex settings and physical buttons for more regular ones. But that's a separate discussion. What isn't a separate discussion though are some features that I don't think people realize made people not pay attention. And I am talking about all the sensors and cameras. And listen here, I am not against them, not a little bit. I actually think that they are useful in many cases. Like, I drove a car with a reversing camera, and in a couple of situations it was kinda useful. But I can't deny the fact that relying on these features just makes people lazy. Why look behind you when reversing when you have a camera? Why turn on the light yourself if the car can sense if it's dark outside? And why look at your lane when you can have your car correct things for you? Well, the camera can be broken or dirty. Light sensor can think that street light is a sun, and sensors for lane centering can be wrong. There is simply a lot that can go wrong when we let machines do things for us without any supervision. And that is why I am personally against self-driving cars. Outside of legal issues of who's responsible if something happens, the computer might simply not realize that something is wrong until it's too late, or the programming might just break. Alright, let me ask you something. Do you think people in self-driving cars are and will be paying attention to make sure that nothing bad happens? Or will they just use their phones and fall asleep? They will use their phones and fall asleep. In 2013, Google gave a couple of self-driving cars to their employees as a test. They told them to pay attention, keep their hands on the wheel, and that the cameras will be watching what's going on inside. Try to guess what happened. Yeah, they were falling asleep and using their phones. On a highway no less. They were definitely braver than I am. But this is kind of the problem here. People simply don't have the attention for that. But this is car part of the problem. Now let's look at people. Stress and people being lazy were already mentioned before. But there's also the confidence part. Or more specifically, too much and too little of it. Too much confidence is the reason for people speeding and weaving through traffic. People think that they know what they are doing and that they have everything under control. Until they meet the reason why people test 0 to 100 and not 100 to 0. On the other hand, the lack of confidence is something that I see being blamed usually by people who defend speeding. But it's also often true, because you have to have some confidence while driving. You cannot be afraid of everything. If you suddenly stop because you saw a pedestrian 10 meters before crossing, you shouldn't drive. You will panic and turn bad or even normal situations into worse ones. But out of the two, I think overconfidence is more dangerous. Don't get me wrong here. While overconfidence is mostly responsible for dangerous drivers, the purely bad ones are the result of lack of confidence. Usually, terms and conditions might apply. But that brings us to the last point. Some people just shouldn't drive. Whether it's rage issues, stress, or just bad spatial awareness. Many people should not be behind the wheel of a car, but because they are often pushed to get their license, they get it. They go to a driving school and then they take an exam. But here's the problem. Schools worry about their passing rate, but also their money, so they do a logical step of Well, let's talk about the driving exam, it will make more sense. Listen here, I know that driving tests are stressful and all. I am still stressed about it despite passing some time ago. But I'm gonna be honest here, the test, despite being stressful, is neither really that hard or all-encompassing. Like, did you know that there is only the street part in Poland? Yeah, we don't go to a faster moving road or anything. The fastest I went during my exam was 50 kilometers an hour. And because of that, many driving schools just teach the routes that examiners take more often. I am weirdly lucky enough to not live in a city where the exam is held, because thanks to that I had some freeway experience after passing. But anyone living in a big city might have barely any. Alright, but what does it have to do with people that shouldn't drive? Well, these people pass because they memorize a route. The test is a box sitting exercise. It tests basic stuff, yeah, sure, but it's not enough to make a good, or actually safe, driver. And because you can pass without any bigger problems, a lot of people just pass because they get lucky. Like, I know people who passed because of that. Someone might have even lost their license after 2 months, or they might have not. I have no idea what is going on with that now. But anyway, you get the idea. Some people simply shouldn't drive. A fix of that would again be societal change of not focusing so much on driving and actually making public transit reliable outside of few bigger cities. So yeah, that was something. I probably forgot a lot of stuff, so leave what you think in the comments. Maybe like and subscribe if you are at it. Bye!